Okay, it looks okay. Can you guys see me? Because I don't see myself here. Um, and can you hear me? I'm so unsavvy tech. It's unbelievable. I guess it's good that I am doing um, mostly talking today, so that whatever is going on with all of this, we can get fixed before. All right. Well, hello. I'm starting to see people in the chat box, and good, Kyla. Thank you. We can see and hear you. All right. And I apologize for all that, not being able to figure that out. But today is all about stabilizers, and we're going to talk a little bit about the stabilizers that I use and that I understand and know, because I get very intimidated when I would walk into Joann's or a quilt store and I would see all these things on the wall, and I wasn't sure which one I was to use or which one was going to be helpful to me. And so through asking questions, and sometimes the person who was at the, in the store or whatever, didn't always know the answers to my questions. And I'm sure you've had those same kind of, issues and problems in your own, in your own experiences. So let's just try and talk a little bit about the different kinds of stabilizers that are out there. And I've got my notes in front of me so I don't, forget any one that I had. And I've gone through my stabilizers and picked up on those, and brought them out, and we'll take a look at them in just a little bit. The first one I want to talk about is a wash away. And the wash away stabilizers, I think, and what I use them for is when I'm doing my special projects, doing some textile arts and things like that, because it's really great for heirloom fabrics like handkerchiefs, organza. When you're doing monograms, all of that is really great for wash away. So when I would, do, monograms on a little shirt, or I was doing something with the kids, I was working with organza in my art quilting, that's when I would use the wash away stabilizers. And one of the things that I would ask you to do is that if you've used a certain brand and certain kind that you really enjoy and that has worked well for you, and you can, just jot that into the chat box, and maybe how you use it or when you use it. If I'm talking about something that you use, please, we learn so much from one another. So for me, the wash away stabilizers are are great for those special projects. And I think it was last week or a couple weeks ago when I showed you the lace leaves. I use my wash away stabilizer when I am doing that tight stitching, and that when it washes away it's going to hold together and look good, and it's going to look as good from the front as it does in the back. And that's where I personally use that the most. And then I don't do a lot of garment work, but there are times when I want some invisible support behind a fabric in a block or something that I'm doing with an art quilt, especially my landscapes. I'll use a poly mesh cutaway. And the poly mesh, what's good about it is that it gives an invisible support. You don't see it under there, and really you don't feel it. And so when you're looking and you're going, why would I use poly mesh? That's why I have found that it works really good for that. And then there are ones that are called Fusible, but they're woven. And so what the woven Fusible does for me, and what I think it does for most quilters, it prevents those puckers and misalignments that we get when we're trying to sew them together. I really like using it when I'm making placemats and a place where when I'm sewing or working with it under my machine, I don't want it to move and I don't want it to pucker. And there's a fusible woven that's both tearaway and cutaway. And when the cutaway or the tearaway is good when you're doing t-shirt quilts and you don't want that extra bulk and stuff in there. So cutting away or the tearaway can work well for that. Then there's the brand names. Wonder Under is one that we see all the time, and they've got Wonder Under Fusible Web, which is paper backed, and turns really any fabric that you have into a fusible fabric. And what I like about Wonder Under is not so much when I use it in my quilting projects, but I can use my fabrics and stuff to make cards, use in my artwork. I mean, it even fuses to wood. So that, when they say it's a Wonder Under, it truly is kind of wonderful. And that kind of thing. And then the next one that I have listed here is Fusible Fleece. This is when I need a little bit of loft and a little bit of body to home decor projects and some of my craft projects. I will put it with pillows. I will, when I'm covering something like a cushion or whatever, if for a chair or, on my couch, whatever, I like using that fleece because it gives both stability, but it also gives me a little bit of that loft and the body that I want, so it holds up well. And I really think that when you're doing pillows, and especially if you're working like with an orphan block or something and you want to turn it into a pillow, putting that fleece on the back of it really gives that pillow the body and the support that it needs. Then there's another brand called Heat and Bond, and it's iron-on, and we use it for machine applique, and it can also for very lightweight fabrics when you're using something very soft and lightweight with that. I'm going to stop for a minute because I've seen some things coming up and I want to answer. What's the difference between fleece versus batting? Oftentimes you can get the fleece it is fusible. And if I use batting, I can sometimes get wrinkles if I'm doing it for like a cushion or something. And so the fleece for me works a little bit better, and it's got a little bit more body and a little bit more weight to it. And it does seem the same, but it reacts differently under the machine and when you are trying to stabilize your work. So that would be that answer. Do you have a worksheet? Well, I have it written in my book now, but I'm going to give you a couple sources when I'm done here. Does tear away distort the stitches when you tear it off? Lynn's, a great question. I have found that some of them do, and it depends on my stitch length, what I'm using with that. If I use a little bit tighter one, I have a better chance of it tearing away, and I tend to use a water pen, and sometimes I'll take the water pen along the outside edge of the stitches, and that way it tears much easier and I don't have to worry about that. Okay, so there, I think I've caught up with that. So, the fleece gives us a little bit more, it's tight, it's a little bit more tighter woven, and so it holds up just a little bit better on that. Then there is a mid-weight Fusibles that Pellon, has just a wide variety of it, and I kind of go a little bit crazy when I'm standing there looking at all of them and saying, which one do I pick? But I use the mid-weight one when I am using heavier fabrics like corduroy, chenille, velveteen, denim, duck cloth, the decor cloth, even linen will hold up a little bit better with the mid-weight. If I'm making curtains or something, I'll use it for a lining in my curtains, and depending if I'm just making like a drawstring bag or something, I'll use it in that. I don't do a lot of bags, but that's where I get into that mid-weight, because most of the time I want lightweight. I want it to be as least visible and affect my fabric as little as I can possibly do it. Then, there's the single and the double-sided Fusibles. Single-sided, that's where, in handbags and things like that, where you only want the Fusible on one side and have the fabric, especially for like linings and bags and things. I'm not a bag person, so there are all these foam and other, weights and stuff that you use with different bags. And you would probably, if you're a bag maker, I would find a good bag maker teacher and talk with them about the best uses for those types of stabilizers. And then we get to Steam-A-Seam. There's the regular Steam-A-Seam and there's the Steam-A-Seam Light. And it's what is good about Steam-A-Seam, and it works better with the regular Steam-A-Seam instead of the light, even though they both do the same thing, and they hold together, they stick together. If you put it on one side of your fabric and you can move that around and keep moving it, changing it, adjusting, those types of things until you get it where you want it and get all the movement done. I especially like it when I do my applique projects that are freeform that I'm coming up with. You can probably see the bouquet of flowers behind me on the wall as I was moving and adjusting those flowers. The Steam-A-Seam, and on that one I use Steam-A-Seam Light. It stays in place, and then when I had it all the way that I wanted it, then I fused it down, and then it becomes permanent. And so that's what I like. And for those types of things. But I'm going to share with you something I even found that I like even better. So when we're talking about categories of stabilizers, I put them into cutaways where you can cut around the your project and get rid of that excess once you've sewn or done whatever it is that you're using. There's the tearaway. And Kathy has just put up, I saw that tearaways have a directional way to tear. And so she's suggesting a tearaway that tears easily in vertical and horizontal. And Kathy, if you have a brand or a kind that does that you can pop in there, that would be great, because I'm not sure that I actually knew that there was I know that some tear easily, so maybe I just tore it in the right direction, vertically or horizontally at the time, because I didn't realize that. Kyla, yes, I'm going to get to that in just a minute. And then the next one is the wash away. And I've already explained a little bit of that. When you are doing something where you don't want any stabilizer to show at all, and you've got a tight sewing weave to it, then the wash away works really well. And so when we're talking, differences between stabilizers and interfacings, again, stabilizers prevent stretching and movement, and you remove them unless, of course, there are some on the market now where you can leave in the fabric. Interfacing, you leave it in and it gives stability to it, and I use that mostly because I'm not a garment sewer. I use it for very fine fabrics, and those silks and organzas and all of that, those invisible interfacings that give a little bit of body to it, and they're left in the fabric for stability, and hopefully that helps you a little bit. I think that I would say, in my personal opinion, that iron-on is best for quilting, and the heavier foam stabilizers, and that is better for bags, is what I'm going to say. Now, I went through my stash, and it's been a number of years so far, and what I have discovered, and I'm going to drop this down to my see if I can find, it's not, something is going on today. My cameras are not showing up on my screen, so let me see if I can do something about that. I may have to hold them up, and that's what I'll do. I'll just hold them, because right now my cameras aren't doing their thing with all of this. So I've moved to using Quilter Select for a whole lot of things, and I'm loving it. There, in some cases, I would say it's probably just a little bit more expensive, but for me, the quality of it and the outcome that I get from it, I have found to be really good. So I have kind of dived in, and from R&K distributors, you can order one of these little booklets that tell you all about their different. This booklet also has all their thread colors, and for their 60 weight cottons and their cones. And in this booklet, you're going to get all of the different, so you can feel them and see them, stabilizers. And I want to kind of go through this. I'm going back to my school days when I hold this up. Let me kind of move this way a little bit. This first one on this side, they're talking about battings and things like that as well. But this top one it feels a little bit stiff, and it's called Print and Piece. It can be run through the printer, and you can print right onto this, so that you could paper piece, and the other cool thing about it, it doesn't really perforate. It doesn't tear, or I'm sorry, I can't move that camera thing, but it's right in my face. And then you have the Print and Piece light, and this one I use. The second one, they look the same, but you can see on this one, maybe if the light is right on the camera, that this has a fusible side to it. And I like that one. It gives support for, heavy stitching. Even a satin stitch will work really well with that one, and I really like it. The rest are battings, and I'm not necessarily going to get into that today. And then we have on this side the tearaway. And what's really cool about this lightweight tearaway, it is so thin and light in there. It has just the right amount of body to support those stitches, and the temporary fusible coating holds in place, and so you don't really have to pin and get that extra distortion, and I love it for that. And then you've got your fusible cutaway that has a fusible backing to it, and you can cut away this. It's very sheer, and I don't know, I wish I could go down below, but you can see just how sheer this one is, and it keeps your fabric from stretching and distorting. And so any fabric that you're going to have that has that capability of distortion, that works really well. And then this one I'm really starting to love with the little bit more of my contemporary and art quilts. This is called Fabric Prep, and you use it for those really fine fabrics, and it's an interlining, is what the booklet says, and it permanently fuses, and it's those luxury fabrics, those organzas, those silks, those clear beautiful fabrics that what we like to use. And then you've got Applique Web Plus, Apple Plus, if you will, and it's a fusible webbing. It also has it on there and can be run through your printer as well. What it does is when I put it in, it doesn't change my fabric hardly at all. And then the last one that I think that I use the most is Applique. It again allows me to move my applique around. And on that one I used Steam-A-Seam, but then I found out about Applique. And once I learned about Applique, now when I do projects like that, I can use this because I really like the ability to put it down, let it stick. When I'm using, I also use it for trimming things. When I'm using decorative stitches and all of that. And the other cool thing is it comes in tape sizes, and a number of these do. You can get the little tapes, and so I kind of like it when I'm doing my bindings because I can run that tape along there, and it's going to hold it in place, and I can fuse that, and then I can stitch my binding down either by machine or by hand, whichever I want to do. So I would recommend that even this, whether you use Quilter Select or not, this little booklet is worth having around just for that. So again, I've told you a little bit about the light Steam-A-Seam and the regular, and the different uses for that. And so two-sided, heat sensitive and pressure sensitive. Then the Print and Piece Fuse Light, I got this for needle turn applique, or when I use my those really complex patterns that I don't necessarily want to take and pull either freezer paper out of or whatever, because this, I can print it, I can piece it, I can do my stitching with it. It doesn't gum up the needles. All of that kind of stuff is wonderful for that. And then I have, the Stitch and Wash here again. But this is a little bit, it's water soluble tearaway, and I like it. I will tend to use like the sulkies and stuff a little bit better when I really want to get rid of something, but this works really well in terms of stitching with the machine. And you can again use the water pen and run that along your stitching lines and get that, it just falls away. And this, again, the apple stick is probably one of my favorite products, and it's because I do quite a bit of applique. And once you get everything positioned and put in place, you can use it for decorative stems, anything like that. And then you fuse it and leave it in. So you got fabric. And a CNT also has, and I like it. You know, you can use it and leave it in, you know, in your applique when you do the turning, all of that. And I've used it quite a bit for that. Still got a bunch left over. And then there's another product that I know many of you use, and you like it, and it works really well for you, and that's the Stable Stuff Poly. And what I haven't used it a ton. I played around with it this week because it was somewhat new to me, this Stable Stuff Poly. And also what's kind of cool about it is you can use this QR code and go and watch a video that Ricky Timms does to show you how to use it, because he has lots of ways that he uses it. It's great for hooped embroidery. It is great for decorative stitching. It really holds up well, and it gives your decorative stitches, you know, a wonderful look, and I was very pleased with it when I was using it yesterday. And you can use it like freezer paper for a turned applique, and because it runs through the printer also, and you can do all your patterns right there, cut them out, fuse them to your fabric, and then turn them with starch, or just, you know, turn and iron them down, and you've got your applique that you can either hand applique or you can machine applique, and also obviously raw edge, and stitch around them, and it really does create a very pretty, beautiful stitching lines to all of that. And so it's also great for paper piecing. That I didn't try, because you can leave it in. It doesn't go away completely, but when you wash it, it gets very, very light. The fibers break down in it, and so it gets very soft and light. So you really don't feel it. You don't say, oh, there must be something under there. It's not like that at all, because I hand appliqued a leaf down on a piece of cloth and put it in water and washed it several times, and it got very soft. And I would say that if I didn't know that I had put it in there, I probably wouldn't know I put it in there. So that's more or less what I know about stabilizers, and that I know it's not comprehensive, and it wasn't, from my perspective, it wasn't meant to be comprehensive, but the things that I use most, and what I think most of us when we're doing quilting would use. Let me go to the questions. Two brands that tear easily horizontally and vertically is the Sulky, Tear Easy, and Ultra Clean and Tear from OESD. So thank you, Kathy, for that. And Fusibles, Apple Stick. Yeah, Kristen has put up, links for that. Yes, Fabric Prep is great for silks and organzas and things like that, especially with the Dupioni silks and things that we're using in our quilts now. It was just absolutely wonderful. Yeah, you've got lots and lots of links here for the Quilter Select and all that. And Hillary says stabilizers are for firming up stitches so they are smooth and the fabric doesn't pucker. Absolutely. Interfacings are for beefing up the fabric so it doesn't wear down through use. that's good to know. You know, for button placards, I know we use it in there, but it's kind of good to have that extra little knowledge there. Is the stuff in the shop or from R&K? Kristen has given you all the links for that, so you're going to be able to find it in the shop. Yeah, Kyla, I would have to agree with you. Once I found, you know, the Quilter Select, that's why I still have, you know, Steam a Seam and stuff here, and I'll use it at some point, but I really like the other better. So I think that's the questions. Hopefully, you know, it's broken down a little bit so things aren't so overwhelming, and when you go into the store you can wade through some of that because there's so many brands, so many types, and you know, hopefully this just cleared that up a little bit. I'm sorry for the problems at the beginning of the show, and for now for me not being able to get my cameras to do their thing, but we'll get that all figured out for next week. And have a absolutely wonderful week and enjoy the things that you're doing. And of course there's always a recording, so you can watch that just if you need a refresher for that. So have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.